Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me here to talk about a very important subject and a very important book, that is political conflict in Pakistan. I'm not going to talk about what is the contemporary political situation in Pakistan, but I will just give you an idea that why this situation is happening according to the description and research work of Dr. Mohammad Waseem, that what he perceived about the political situation of Pakistan. So, first of all, I would say that this is a very amazing audience, very energetic audience, because those who love book, those who love literature, those who love to read books, me and teachers like me, they love all of you. So it's a gratitude for Usmani Saab also, that he initiated, and his team Book Club also, who initiated such a wonderful job. Okay, when we talk about, they asked me to discuss and to participate in the book club, then I thought that what topic or what book I have to choose. So I chose Dr. Waseem's Political Conflict in Pakistan, because as a student of political science, um, I think so. There are almost 40 years to study politics and to teach politics from the last 22 years. So, being a student of political science, we used to apply established theories, concepts, and approaches to domestic and international issues for designing a resolution, for developing a strategy, to understand and to make towards a logical conclusion for the way forward. Sometimes we use a chronological order of the event for making that strategy. And sometimes we use certain themes for designing that strategy. Because most of the students are sitting here, which I have seen, then they belong to history and political science and international relations. That is their subject. So I think so they are familiar with all these concepts. And they, if you are interested in Pakistan politics and international politics, then you would also have this idea that the literature, when we try to search, then these two types of literature we found, especially with the relevance of Pakistan, that there are some books which focus on certain specific issues. If you want to dig the constitutional issues, then you can get constitutional specified books. If you want to get certain ethnic issues, you want to get their understanding, then there are the books you can find, that what are the reasons of ethnic tensions. And if you want to understand federalism, means that you name the issue and you can get the scholarly contribution in it. But the very important and significant element of Dr. Waseem's contribution is that he actually made all these issues together into one book. And that is very important for your read, because he did not made a chronological order, but he gave four themes. One theme, four themes which have become the base of political conflict in Pakistan. I will discuss it with you, and then you can get the idea that, okay, this is the situation. Just because of that, at this time, Pakistan has this type of political stage. So the four paradigms or the four constructs which he presented in his book, in which the very first one is state conflict, that is relevant to conflict within. It means that whenever we talk about the political conflict, it has two types of approaches. One is top to bottom approach, and the second one is bottom to top approach. Top to bottom approach means that the master narrative is made by the state. state authorities, institutions, they have designed certain strategies and then they execute those strategies within the state, and then in the reaction, people accept it or reject it. This is the top to bottom approach. The second one is bottom to top approach. The first one, that is top to bottom, this is generally known as the colonial scholarship, because that is the colonial mindset, because colonialists always they try to develop centralized policies and they used to give dictation to the institution that they have to do this or this not. The other one, which is the bottom to top approach, that is usually called the post-colonial approach. And the post-colonial approach is that the people, general public, masses, they are actually allowed to participate in the decision making and they give their feedback, and then the government or the state is able to make certain policies. So when we talk about this first one, then Dr. Waseem has analyzed in his book that whenever the state used top to bottom approach, that approach became very disastrous, and this is the traditional narrative also, because under that approach, that designed conflict within the state, that gave institutional design, that gave the master narrative, and in this institutional design and master narrative, there are two power centers which emerged, and these two power centers since the beginning were number one, the middle class, and second one is the political class. These two, middle class and the political class, which are, you can say that if the magnet has two poles, then within the domain of Pakistan, these two remained two poles, because political elite always remained isolated to the people, to the general public, and that was actually the reason that lately we have seen that Dr. Waseem has used the word Pakistani democracy, the establishmentarian democracy. So there is a very little time for me, so I cannot explain too much here. So I will move forward that within these two power centers, then again, when we talk about the state's role and the state's development of the institution, in which the clash of institutions remained at its peak. Since the beginning, because in the early years we have seen that establishment institutions mean number one, the establishment, number two, parliament, which is the civil institution, and number third is the judiciary. These three institutions somehow or the other had remained parallel to each other, because if you see constitution, then constitution says that parliament will be the superior institution, then the other two institutions would be the subservient to the parliament. This is the constitutional position. But gradually, just because of the reason that the constitution did not remain operative off and on, so the subservient institution became the overwhelming to the civilian institution, and then the clash started. And I think so there is within this thing, it's very open for all of you that the institutional domain and the institutional rivalry, just because of this, what is happening in Pakistan. And the last thing, in the very first theme, he talked about the mass public, that in this institutional design, in the power struggle, in all these things, what is the perspective of the masses? So gradually, this time period, if we evaluate the 75 years history of Pakistan, so this is the first time that the mass public, they have actually started talking about all that power struggle, all the power politics, that is the conflict within the state, in the shape of the freedom of expression that our media has, in the shape of the street talks, in the shape of the public discussion, because at this time, when we talk about the institutions, there is not a single institution that I think so has a sanctity at this time, because everyone is talking about everything for the institution. So this is actually the outcome from the last 75 years. The second theme which Dr. Waseem has described, that is the state and ethnicity. Because since the beginning, from 1947 up till this 2023, ethnicity has remained a very vibrant political conflict in Pakistan, and to overcome this ethnic tension and to assimilate different ethnicity into one national identity, two strategies or two policies state had made. One is that they opted, the state design was that it would be federal design. Federalism was opted to soothe the ethnic sentiments, because it was said that every ethnic group will get their due share. But the ethnic federalism, it created problems off and on. And we have seen that the demand for provincial autonomy, it was a very consistent demand till 2010. When we had 18th Amendment, then this demand was a little bit at the lowest ebb, but still we have seen that 18th Amendment mean all the abolishment of the concurrent list and the devolution plan, but there are certain issues in the 18th Amendment. So devolution is not completely done in under the 18th Amendment. So we have seen the demand of provincial autonomy that is again happening. One very important and interesting element which Dr. Waseem has discussed in his book, that is the concept of outsider and insider. Uh, as a student of political science, I studied A.D. Smith, I studied James G. Callas, I studied Ernest Galliner. They all are very famous while discussing and talking about ethnicity and ethnic nationalism, and they use the term in-group and out-group. But the term in-group and out-group, what Dr. Waseem has discussed in his book, that is entirely different. And he talked about as with the reference of power. He said that in-group mean the two important groups. Number one, the Punjabis, and number two, the Muhajirs, the immigrants. And the out groups are the rest of the areas like Pashtuns and Saraitis and Balochs. They are the out groups. Why he said this? According to him, Punjabis always had very sufficient in their plate. So they are the ruler and they became the policy makers since beginning. The immigrants, when Pakistan was made, then that was the only community which was very much educated and skilled, because from where they migrated to Pakistan, they were doing the same job, that was the administration. So that was actually the government's, you can say that they adopted them to take care their governmental affairs or state affairs, and then Muhajirs became the part and parcel of that governmental apparatus. So gradually, when the monopoly was made of these two groups, the other groups became alienated to the state institution and the government. So they become the core group of administration, and core group was called the in group, and a tussle was started that why these two groups are in the majority in all the institutions, why not the other ethnic groups. So that was the domain of insider and outsider group. And lately, Dr. Waseem has said that within these two core groups, Punjabi and migrant, the other group was involved, which is now known the establishment. The next thing, which is state and ethnicity to the ethnic narrative. Gradually, when ethnic groups they are not getting their when their wishes are not fulfilled, when they are not getting their due right, then what is happening in the consequence, the outcome is that ethnic group used to develop their ethnic narrative, who we are, what we are, what we are going to do, and for that purpose they use their ethnicity and ethnic association to use their political objectives, to use their to get their economic objectives and to get their social objectives as well. So we have seen that all the ethnic narrative in Pakistan that has become instrumentalized to get their own objectives. So this is one thing, another very important that Dr. Waseem with facts and figures contributed in his book. The third theme which we discussed, that is the state and religion. This is again very important because since partition, we are seeing and we are observing that religion has become a very, very important and very controversial domain as well, because when we talk about that Pakistan is made on the basis of two nation theory, that Indian Hindus are different and Muslims are different, so Muslims need another state, and for that purpose we created Pakistan. So when Pakistan was created, what happened? Whether in this Pakistan the two nation theory still exists, then we studied and we observed and we are told that two nation theory has been converted into the ideology of Pakistan, because Pakistan is created on the basis Islamic ideology. And from that, we have seen that two nation theory, we are, whatsoever I will say, that we have gradually confused the generations ahead, that what would be the future of Pakistan, whether Pakistan would be an Islamic state or Pakistan would be a secular state. Somehow or the other, I told my students as well that I do believe in that generally masses, they do not understand the concept of secularism. They believe in that perhaps secularism means absence of religion, and they are very crude when we talk about secularism. Secularism means that state does not own any religion, and individual masses, they are free to do their religious practices. But the right wing, Pakistan was divided into two wings, the right wing and the left wing, which Dr. Waseem told us that they are not the right and left, but the traditional and the modern. And I was very much astonished when he used these two terms, that gradually we have seen that at this time the traditionals are more traditionals and they are using extra constitutional means. They have designed and developed their militant wings as well. But as far as the modernists are concerned, they are less modern. The speed of modernism was not as faster as the speed of traditionalists. So this is the thing, I think so, on which we have to study more and we have to research more, that whether this argument which Dr. Waseem has given us is correct or incorrect. So this is a thing on which I have to work and you also have to work, that we should understand the intensity of this argument which he presented here. Anyhow, uh, the last point which he mentioned in the third theme, that is alternative globality. And alternative globality means that within this domain of religion and politics, we have seen that different governments had different stance about the involvement of religion into politics, and that stance was from local or domestic issues to transforming the international issues, in which they had the concept of global Islam or the concept of Ummah as well, because we have seen when, which he discussed as well, that the first Islamic summit that was in the time period of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, that was the major theme was that Islam is not the local issue, but we have to transform them to globally, and we have to develop the concept of Ummah. And then in 80s and in 90, in the decade of 80s, we have seen General Zaula, he also had the same stance when he started Islamization of Pakistani society and politics as well. So among these three, the last one, which he presented theme, that is the subaltern conflict. Subaltern means that the political elite remained very active, very important. The civil society remained very active, and they off and on in the shape of ethnicity and ethnic demands. They gave their suppositions to the government and the religious elite also. But the last one, which is the non-conflictual entity, that is the general masses, they actually had a kind of politics, he said, the patronage politics. Patronage politics mean that they had a relationship of patron and client with the government. And this is happening since the colonial period, or since the before the partition time, which he gave a complete chapter. When you will read that, you can get that whatsoever the British colonial system, they were giving the policies to the people, then general public, general masses, they were adopting that as it is. So in this theme, he talks about courts and votes, that how the voters, they are being bribed, and they are only giving these slogans from since the inception up till now. There is a class in Pakistan who are only getting the slogans, who are only getting the dreams and the wishes, but those dreams and those wishes still not fulfilled. So this non-conflictual class, according to Dr. Waseem, is a very minimized now. At this time, all these conflicts have has given a baseline, and that baseline is designed by the civil society. So civil society has become very important. Civil society is at this time at the stage of revolution as well, because gradually they have crossed the evolutionary process. So although that within this book he did not give us the future framework, but he discussed only the important conflicts in a very collaborative way, that how one is impacting the other, how one is influencing the other. And I would say that this is a kind of re-evaluation, this is a kind of reassessment of political conflict in Pakistan. And I would suggest for all of you that this is the must-read book. When you will read this book, then you will consider yourself that what is happening around Pakistan today, you will make everything into the theoretical parameters as we, the political scientists, do. Thank you very much. If you have any question, then I am here.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful address. मेरा सवाल ये है आपसे कि do you believe the core of your heart in two-nation theory? Because before 1940, you did not hear a word Pakistan. Pakistan was result of only 7-year struggle. And how, because Dr. Mushtaq Ahmed has put forward his argument that when British was about to leave subcontinent, they planned that within the coming decades there will be the Soviet influence in this region, and it would bring a harder to the Western interest. So, do you think that Pakistan was really created by the heroes that we today entitle our Pakistan heroes, or it was created by the British forces for their own interest?
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. but I will suggest that do not confine yourself to one author only. Study different perspectives. When you will study different perspective, then you will get to know. You by yourself you will judge that what is right and what is wrong. You said that by core of your heart, you will are you agree with the two nation theory? Yes, I do agree with two nation theory, number one. Because you want to see my opinion, so this is my opinion. Second thing, you said that before 1940, we didn't heard the word Pakistan. I didn't heard because I was not there at that time, but I studied the first when Pakistan, the word Pakistan was used, that was Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, and that was around in 1938, 39, I think so. So 33, 1933. So Pakistan, it was there. And when Pakistan was there, Muslims did not give the word Pakistan, that 1940s resolution. That name was given to the Hindus because it was actually their fear that what is happening now. And they said that they are going to make Pakistan when they said that Muslims and Hindus are two different nations. And they are different because at that time the driving force, they said that this is the religion. And one more thing that I will suggest, that actually this is the role of leadership. Leadership actually reads the pulse of the people. And when they read that pulse, that they are the people who can be motivated through this very aspect of religion, then they design the move and lately they become successful.
थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you.
मैं एक क्वेश्चन ज़्यादा स्टूडेंट्स के लिए लेना चाहती हूँ कि आपके ज़्यादा हो, लेकिन उसके लिए ज़रूरी है कि एक टू द पॉइंट और एक फ्रेज का कीजिए ताकि मैक्सिमम स्टूडेंट्स को पार्टिसिपेशन दें।
And ma'am, it has always been an honor to listen to you. Either in the science department or here. So my question is about the approach used by Dr. Waseem in his book, because I am going through the thesis of Maya to Gold. She's also worked a lot on democratization in India and Pakistan, and she took a social background as an independent variable while explaining democratization in India and Pakistan. And she concluded that in India they inherited a political class which was mainly from middle class that developed after British colonialism. But what Pakistan inherited, it was all landed aristocracy.
Yes.
So I think that Dr. Waseem did not mention the point of a value system of our politicians, our political elite value system, which we also can observe that immediately after partition, entire of our political class did not want to go into elections and make people relevant to democracy. How do you view the point which has been raised by Dr. Waseem? Because he remained political conflict centric, and the conflict which emerged between institutions like establishment and legislature, because ultimately it was there were politicians who let establishment come into politics. How do you view this?
But sir, a complete chapter on this very issue, that what was the pre-partition situation, how the political elite was established, and what was the role of middle class in it. You are very right that this point was missed by Dr. Waseem, that the civil society in Pakistan, or the middle class in Pakistan at that time, that was not very much politically oriented and politically established, because all the you can say that the elite that based on the aristocrats and those landed aristocrats. So yes, they were very much part of that. And when Pakistan was created, and in 1946 when we had established our first constituent assembly, in that assembly we have seen all those faces which were elected in the 1945-46 elections. And that was actually the reason that from 1947 till 1954, we had a crisis of political legitimacy. Because after that, no general election were held. And during those elections, because of this gap, there was a distrust between the masses and between the political elite and the middle class. That's actually the point which he elaborated in his book. So he had a different dimension, but your point of view is different, And this is actually in the social sciences, that this is the research work that will keep going on, because now someone else would start on this very dimension, that what are the sequences of this gap. So, thank you.
We talked about major conflicts that existing between us and the common people and the state. So we talked about all the political conflicts, but we missed the geographical conflict, that is Kashmir issue. So what you would like to add listening about this issue and how effective and valid this argument is?
Okay, Bache, actually, the nature of research does not based on the external conflict, because when we talk about Kashmir, it means that we are talking about any issue relating to foreign policy. This is the political conflict in Pakistan, which I told you that he gave us 4 themes, that what is the conflict within Pakistan. So your question is relatively relating to the concept of foreign policy. It does not dealing the foreign policy.
Actually, I was talking about that we are talking about the internal conflict.
Mhm.
So in internal, we are also talking about the common people of Pakistan. So for the common people, for them, religiously and ethnically, it is an issue for them. Whenever they listen into this about the Kashmir and the Palestinians or religiously, they are worried about that, and so it also creates a massive internal conflict.
You means to say that Kashmir conflict is a conflict that is internal conflict, because people have different approaches regarding Kashmir conflict. But you can get my point of view separately, because at this time I'm talking about only what Dr. Waseem has said. So according to him, that this Kashmir conflict is not the internal major conflict. On the basis we could have chaotic situation in the state.
Ma'am, I am from Political Science Department, Mohammad Waseem, and I have a question. You have explained about ethnicity, and you elaborated the standpoint of Waseem, Dr. Waseem, that he has stated in his book that Punjabis are leaders in the past and they were rulers like, and they were the ethnicity in a sense. Ma'am, I have a question that are Punjabis really, we can consider them an ethnicity, because in a sense we have studied much more about their castes specifically, and that has also, in present contemporary situation, we can also witness their castes as strong as that was in the past. We cannot perceive them as ethnicity, rather they are like Rajputs, they are Arai, or so many other castes. On the other hand, the ethnicity like Pashtuns, they have a feeling of oneness. You or someone cannot, one cannot perceive Punjabis if they have feeling of oneness. Yeah, they are Rajput, they are those who can feel, they have the feeling of oneness. Or they are Arai, there are so many other small castes who have the feeling of oneness. How he has perceived them as ethnicity? Ma'am, kindly explain.
Ethnic, two things. One is the ethnic group. Punjabi is an ethnic group. And second thing is the subgroups. Whatever you have highlighted, that is the caste, and I think so. Pashtuns, they have caste system. Baloch, they have caste system. Saraikis, they have caste system. Like Punjabis, they have caste system. When we talk about ethnic groups, that their feelings of oneness, that is, those feelings are called ethnicity. The feelings of ethnicity, that we are being one. And in Pashtuns, all Pashtuns, they have feeling of ethnicity just because of certain deprivations they have. So I told you before that those feelings of deprivation have become instrumentalized for designing that ethnicity, for designing those ethnic feelings. And whatsoever Punjabis are called, or Punjabi ethnicity is concerned, uh, I told that they are the part of in-group. And when you are in-group, when you are leader, then you do not bother to design those feelings, to instrumentalize those feelings. So I think so this is one of the reasons that you can get more affection towards the caste system, not towards the Punjabi ethnicity.
When you mentioned the confusion of Dr. Waseem about the Pakistan's future identity, I have a question. What is the solution of confusion of Pakistan's future identity of Islamic State or the secular state? If scholar like Dr. Waseem and intellectual like Dr. Rehana Saeed Hashmi are confused about the Pakistan's future identity, then as student of political science, what we should think about the Pakistan's future identity of Islamic State or the religious or secular state?
Okay, good. Your question is good, but I did say this, that Dr. Waseem and I both are confused about the future identity of Pakistan, whether Islamic or secular. I didn't say this. I am not very much confused because I gave the answer. Okay, the second thing is that I said that I am confused and you have to research more on this very particular phrase, what Dr. Waseem has said, that gradually traditional elite or traditionalists have become more traditionalist and modernists have become lesser modern. I mean, there is the two generation. One is the traditional and the other one is modernist. When we say the modern generation, then they have become on the lesser pace. They are not as fast as the traditionalists are. So when we say see traditionalists, I said that they are using different other measures and means, like they have designed militant and they are very aggressively focusing on their projecting their point of view. So I get that I am confused on this, that whether this statement is right or wrong. So you and me have to work more on it. Thank you.
The last question.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम सर
Well,
फॉर लिसनिंग नाइस लेक्चर। मेरा सवाल ये है कि जैसे आपने एक थर्ड थीम बताया सेक्युलरिज्म वाला, उसमें वसीम
थर्ड का तो रिपीट कीजिए।
थर्ड थीम सेक्युलरिज्म वाला, जिसमें डॉक्टर वसीम ने दो हमारे क्लासेस को डिवाइड किया है, ट्रेडिशनल और मॉडर्न क्लासेस, और उसको ये कहा कि वो जैसे मतलब एक कंट्री में रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिसेस को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, वो एक्स्ट्रा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है। अगर हम अपना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन देखें तो वो तो बहुत ज़्यादा ही सेक्युलर है। जब हम फंडामेंटल राइट्स पढ़ते हैं, इवन हमने तो वेस्ट की भी वेस्ट की फिलॉसफी को भी इनकॉर्पोरेट किया है, ईस्ट की फिलॉसफी को भी इनकॉर्पोरेट किया है। तो ये दो सेक्शन तो मैम इजीली जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को मैनिपुलेट कर सकते हैं। अगर हम मॉडर्न सेक्शन में जाते हैं तो वो इजीली बेटर एजुकेशन लेकर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को अच्छी तरह से इंटरप्रेट, तो मैम क्या ये फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली इटसेल्फ इंटरप्रेटेटिव?
देखिए, दो इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है जो मैंने अभी पहले कहा कि मैं जितना इस किताब को पढ़ती चली गई उतना मुझे ये चीज़ अंदाज़ा इसका होता चला गया कि हमारे बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम सिर्फ इस वजह से भी आए कि हमने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की जो स्पिरिट है, उस स्पिरिट में उसको इन्फोर्स नहीं किया गया। इसकी जितनी भी इंटरप्रिटेशंस हैं उसमें बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स जो हैं वो आते चले गए हैं। और एक जगह पे डॉक्टर वसीम ने खुद से लिखा भी है और आजकल की सिचुएशन भी इस बात को बताती है कि जब आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के ऊपर जब प्रॉब्लम्स आपके आते हैं, जब इंटरप्रिटेशंस के अंदर प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं और वो जो प्रॉब्लम होता है वो सम टाइम क्योस की शक्ल में, सम टाइम वो डिस्ट्रक्टिव पीस की शक्ल में आपके सामने नजर आता है, लेकिन उसका एक पॉजिटिव आउटकम भी होता है। और वो पॉजिटिव आउटकम आपको उसका ये होता है कि ग्रेजुअली आप रेजोल्यूशन की तरफ जा रहे होते हैं, चीजें सेटलमेंट की तरफ जा रही होती है। थोड़ी देर पहले डिस्कशन हमारी चल रही थी इसी बात के ऊपर कि कभी हमने जिंदगी में नहीं सोचा था कि जो इसकी स्पीकर की वर्क्स एंड प्रिविलेजेस हैं उसके ऊपर बात होगी। सबको पता है कि जी अच्छा गवर्नर की क्या है और स्पीकर की क्या है, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकली अब पता चला हमें कि गवर्नर ने क्या करना है और स्पीकर ने क्या करना है। तो 1 2 3 4 करके उसकी जुडिशियल इंटरप्रिटेशन हो गई और आइंदा के लिए वो एक सेट रूल जो है वो आपके सामने आ गया। तो अभी हम उस फेज में हैं जिसमें हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक, जिसको आप कहेंगे पिछले, चूंकि हिस्ट्री तो हमारी 75 इयर्स की है, लेकिन ऑफ एंड ऑन चूंकि हमारी जो 30 से 35 इयर्स की हिस्ट्री है वो पीसीओस के जरिए से और आरसीओस के जरिए से गवर्न हुई है। तो अब हम उस ट्रैक के ऊपर हैं जहां पे हमें जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल हमारे इश्यूज हैं और जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल क्वेश्चंस हैं उनको हम प्रॉपर तरीके से एड्रेस करें और क्लैरिटी आती चली जाए। तो मेरा ख्याल है कि ग्रेजुअली इन द इयर्स टू कम वी विल हैंडल दैट इशू।
थैंक यू सो मच मैम, थैंक यू सो मच। मुझे पता है कि क्वेश्चंस बहुत सारे अभी हैं, लेकिन हमारा टाइम क्योंकि शॉर्ट होता है, लिमिटेड टाइम होता है, और ये डिबेट ऐसी है मैम, इसमें जो है वो सोचने वाले ये सारे जहन बैठे हुए हैं और उनमें से बहुत सारे सवाल उनके जहनों में हैं। तो थैंक यू सो मच मैम।
बहुत शुक्रिया।